Chapter 41 Cheng Ling sings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It really took them 2 hours. I happened to glance at the time right when they took off. That's incredible, Cheng Ling. If you don't get it, just ask. What's so incredible about it? It's obvious you guys can't live without your watches or phones. Take pooping, for example. The time you spend waiting outside the door is totally different from the time you're sitting on the toilet. They're exhausted out here, but they can still nail the time. How awesome is that? I'm amazed at you brainless fans. Can't you see the obvious setup? Cheng Ling's been crushing it since minute 1. If you think this isn't scripted, you're kidding yourself. Yeah, I've been quiet for a while now. Where'd Cheng Ling hire the shills? Don't hog all the money, guys. Send us the link so we can get a piece of the action. Guess what? I just asked my dog, and he said, I believe it. Shills. Are we just naturally standing Cheng Ling? Cheng Ling paying us? Please, we're trying to throw money at Cheng Ling, but she doesn't need it. All we can do is cheer her on. Hey, tough guy, let me ask you something. Could you trap a rabbit right now? Could you build a shelter with your bare hands? How about you deal with the rabbit, skin it, gut it, skewer it, and roast it? It's easy to talk big, but if you disagree, give it a shot. And while you're at it, try catching a drone. I'm telling you, taking apart a drone with your bare hands is the hardest part. Anyone know if there's something up with the drone? Maybe the director deliberately used a crummy one to make Cheng Ling look good. I gotta hand it to you haters. What script are you even talking about? I believe what I see. My Ling stayed up all night and is still full of energy, but you stay up all night and look like a wilted plant. Those other 2 guys slept all night and can barely walk. My Ling's got a spring in her step. If Bai Muchuan wasn't so beat that he almost face-planted, my Ling wouldn't have stopped at all. I'm not even gonna argue with you die-hard fans. I'm calling it now, Cheng Ling's got the script, believe it or not, you can't reason with someone who's playing dumb. This is just talking in circles. Any moderators in here? Why are people like this allowed in the live stream? It's ruining the experience. Ban them, ban them. We need to get them a silent package at all costs. The live stream was a mess, but Cheng Ling and the other 2 were oblivious. They sat quietly by the big rock, drinking water and enjoying the downtime. Even though Bai Muchuan was exhausted, he was still practically an athlete. He'd just been slacking off and trying too hard to look skinny for the cameras. He still had a good foundation, and he recovered some strength after a little rest. Once his energy came back, he couldn't sit still. As soon as he was rested, he got up and started poking around the rock. The forest was full of new and interesting things, unlike the city. Soon, Bai Muchuan made a new discovery. Whoa, are those mushrooms? Let's pick some and cook them up later. Bai Muchuan's eyes lit up, he'd found food. Finally, he was contributing to the team. Cheng Ling didn't even look up. She'd spotted those clusters of mushrooms earlier when she was checking out the rock. The reason she hadn't picked them was because they were poisonous, the kind that could send you on a trip. Cheng Ling didn't answer Bai Muchuan directly, but said, Hey, Bai Muchuan, let me sing you a song. What? Jiang Qilan was stunned. Bai Muchuan didn't think twice and immediately cheered. I haven't heard the big sister sing yet. I saw this online, Cheng Ling said, suddenly seeming shy. I'm not a very good singer, so don't laugh at me. Big sister, don't be modest. Go for it. Jiang, give her a hand. Jiang Qilan clapped along. As a singing star himself, he was curious to hear Cheng Ling sing. Cheng Ling had a nice voice, so he figured she'd be pretty good. Cheng Ling cleared her throat. Red umbrellas and white poles, eat them and lie on the board and sleep in the coffin, then bury the mountain and cry. Relatives and friends come to eat, umbrellas for the meal. Everyone lies on the board, nobody cares, the whole village is parched. Jiang Qilan, Bai Muchuan, the production crew, and a bunch of viewers were in shock. Who sings like that? It had a melody, but it was also totally off-key. How could Cheng Ling, with a face like that, sing so badly? It didn't make any sense. Chapter 42. What did I do wrong that you treat me like this? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cheng Ling's got simple dreams. Back when she was with the H Rangers, she was a singer with a voice like gold. People would get so emotional listening to her, they'd be in tears. Now, she's set on making it big in the entertainment world, and a great voice is definitely a head start. Take Jiang Qilan, for example, he's a star in movies, TV, and music. The guy's huge. Cheng Ling, totally into her performance, belted out the song. Looking up at the sky. When she was done, she turned to Jiang Qilan. So, what do you think? Jiang Qilan's a pro, no doubt. If he gave her the thumbs up, she'd be the next big thing, landing a spot on a singing competition, cutting a few records. But Jiang Qilan just stared blankly. Cheng Ling's smile faded. She looked at Muchuan. Huh? Muchuan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Cheng Ling's voice was striking. He couldn't decide what he was more afraid of, nails on a chalkboard or another note from Cheng Ling. The chat went silent for a solid 10 seconds, then, all hell broke loose. Woke me right up. Gone, morning sleepiness, gone. Instant alertness. JPG. My headphones just asked what they did to deserve this. I want to go back 2 minutes and scream, mute it. Mute it now. My brain just flatlined. Now I know how Jiang Qilan feels. Seeing those two guys' reactions, Cheng Ling was not amused. Seriously. Even if it wasn't great, shouldn't they have at least choked down some fake praise for the sake of the live stream? Cheng Ling's face darkened. Jiang Qilan finally snapped out of it, swallowed hard, and, looking at Cheng Ling's expression, said cautiously, Hey, you're singing, it's a little, off-key. Off-key? Me? Cheng Ling pointed at herself, surprised. No way. Hadn't she noticed? Was it possible that she? Jiang Qilan had a hunch. Hey, I just heard this song. Let me try singing it first, see if you notice anything different. Without even clearing his throat, Jiang Qilan started, red umbrella, white umbrella, after eating, lie down on the board, sleep in the coffin, and then bury it in the mountain. Cheng Ling listened closely. Jiang Qilan sang a few lines, then stopped. So. Hear anything? Bless you, king of singers, for cleaning out my ears. Sounds amazing. He makes even a corny song sound ethereal. Touched by an angel. The difference? What difference? Was it just the guy/girl thing? Cheng Ling frowned. I think I sang it in the same key as you. Listen, red umbrella, white umbrella, after eating, lie down on the board, sleep in the coffin, and then bury it in the mountain, no defense. She hit me again. Too soon to celebrate, freshly polluted ears. Why are you singing again? Why? Roaring. I cranked up the volume to hear Jiang Qilan sing. I'm heading straight to the ear doctor now. So, Cheng Ling, ever heard of tone deafness? Jiang Qilan, being a music industry veteran, knew the deal. He explained, some people have trouble perceiving music, or maybe the muscles around their vocal cords don't develop fully, and that can cause tone deafness. Plus, there's a kind where the singer themselves can't even tell they're off-key. Cheng Ling knew about tone deaf. She just didn't know that the sister she'd time-traveled into was musically challenged. If she'd known, she wouldn't have sung. It backfired on her. Her dreams of becoming the next big thing went up in smoke. Nobody's ever said my singing was bad. My parents, my siblings, they all love hearing me sing. Jiang Qilan said, ever read that old story about Zhou Ji criticizing the king of Qi for only listening to flattery? Cheng Ling got it. Back with the H Rangers, her singing probably wasn't great, but nobody dared to say so. It took Cheng Ling 3 seconds to accept the fact that she was tone deaf. Then, she cleared her throat. Ahem, oh, right. I won't sing anymore. By Muchuan, who'd barely recovered, almost had his soul snatched away again by her sudden yell. "Yes, ma'am. What's up?" "Hey, you know what this song's about?" By Muchuan muttered to himself, "I am not in the mood for your transfers, star," but he didn't dare say that out loud. "No idea. Thought you were doing some kind of stress test for us." "Your sister's stress test." Cheng Ling moved on. "This song's about poisonous mushrooms. They'll kill you." Chapter 43 by Muchuan and Jiang Qilan are in for a treat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Muchuan was bummed to hear they couldn't eat the mushrooms. He stared at the plump little mushrooms with their umbrella-like caps. "I love mushrooms. I always order tons of grilled mushroom skewers when I get barbecue." Cheng Ling was itching to change the subject, wanting to move on from the singing voice discussion. Hearing Bai Muchuan's comment, she jumped on it. "You want mushrooms? Easy. There are plenty around here. We can grill some for lunch." "Huh?" Bai Muchuan was confused. "Didn't you just say those mushrooms were poisonous?" "I said that mushroom was poisonous. That doesn't mean all the mushrooms in this forest are dangerous." Cheng Ling pointed to the shade of a big tree a few feet away. "There are a good dozen edible ones over there." "How do you know?" Bai Muchuan was surprised again. "Is that from your books too? If only he knew how much botany training I've had. Cheng Ling thought. Of course, I know the common mushrooms." "Which one is the hazel mushroom, star?" she explained. "It's best to avoid eating wild mushrooms in general because it's hard for most people to tell the difference between the poisonous and safe ones." She tilted her chin up. "I just happen to recognize these. I used to go mushroom picking in the mountains with my grandpa when I was a kid." "You're amazing." Bai Muchuan gushed, nudging Jiang Qilan. "Right, Jiang?" "Yeah, you're right. She's awesome." Jiang Qilan agreed. Cheng Ling really was impressive. He wasn't exaggerating when he thought she was the most capable woman he'd ever met. Bai Muchuan immediately darted off toward the mushrooms Cheng Ling had pointed out. He was a little nearsighted, so he didn't see the 5 or 6 clusters of mushrooms until he was right under the tree. Just as he reached out to grab one, Cheng Ling called out, "Wait. Tap the mushroom caps before you pick them." "Huh?" Bai Muchuan squatted down, his hand hovering over a mushroom stem, and turned around, looking puzzled. "Why? Are they sleeping?" LOL. Adorable Bai Muchuan. "Ha! Wake the mushrooms up so they can get grilled." Cheng Ling was speechless for a moment. "Isn't it because mushrooms reproduce through spores? Tapping them releases the spores so they can spread. That way, more mushrooms will grow in the same spot later," Jiang Qilan explained. Then he looked at Cheng Ling. "Am I right, Teacher Cheng?" Cheng Ling gave him a thumbs up. "Yep, spot on. You two stay here, okay? I'm going to look for some more food." "Be careful," Jiang Qilan cautioned. "Don't worry." Cheng Ling turned to leave. After a few steps, she stopped, turned back, and asked, "Any food you guys don't eat?" "I know Muchuan doesn't eat rabbit." "No restrictions," Jiang Qilan said. "I'll eat anything," Bai Muchuan added. "Okay." Cheng Ling grabbed her backpack and picked up a stick from the bush. "I didn't eat much breakfast, so I'll try to find us a good meal. It might take a while, so don't freak out if I'm gone long." "How will we know if you're in trouble?" Jiang Qilan looked concerned. "Maybe I should go with you." Bai Muchuan wailed, "Jiang, don't leave me here alone. I'm scared." "How about I go with her and you stay here? You both should rest up. You'll need the energy later. Besides, having to keep track of you two and look after you is too much for one person." Jiang Qilan clutched his chest dramatically. "Even though you're right, I'm still a little hurt." Cheng Ling smiled, thought for a moment, then plucked a clean leaf from a nearby tree, wiped it on her sleeve, and put it to her mouth. Chirp, she blew on the leaf, making a loud, clear sound. "If I'm in danger, I'll use this." "Wow, that's amazing." Teach me sometime. Bai Muchuan's eyes lit up with curiosity. What's this all about? Cheng Ling put the leaf in her pocket. I'll teach you later. See you soon. Besides just singing, another reason why she was nicknamed Nightingale was that she could make all sorts of pretty sounds by blowing on leaves. It had only been a few days, but it felt like those days were a lifetime ago. Well, technically, they were. She shook her head. Forget about it, why not focus on the present and think about what to eat? Grilled quail. Roasted wild duck. Roasted, wait, what? Is that a snake? Cheng Ling froze, staring at the twisting green snake hanging from a branch, then she gulped. Bai Muchuan and Jiang Qilan are in luck. Chapter 44 Return with a full load. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bullet screen, why isn't Cheng Ling moving? Maybe I'm seeing things, but did that vine just move? OMG, it did move. It's a snake. Help. Snake. Holy crap. Run. Wait, why doesn't she look scared? She looks kind of happy. Of course, Cheng Ling was happy. How could she not be happy when she saw food? She raised her stick and whacked the snake's head. It hit the ground, twitched a few times, and went still. Then, she pulled out a folding knife, chopped off its head, poked a hole in the ground with the stick, tossed the head in, and kept going, dragging the snake's tail. What just happened? Snake, I'm wondering the same thing. Squirrel just dodged a bullet. Glad I'm unappetizing. I'm cracking up. Turns out the snake should be screaming for help. As Lu Sun never said, no critter escapes Cheng Ling's clutches. A snake, after roasting, is about the same as 2 duck necks, a little snack at best, Cheng Ling thought, and where there are snakes, there's a good chance there are bird nests. Given the latitude and climate here, there should be a bunch of quail around. Quail, 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 quail like to nest in dry, warm, sunny spots, and what fits that bill perfectly, Cheng Ling saw, was a big bush growing between some shorter trees, about half the size of a basketball court. Good sunlight, good ventilation, perfect for quail nests. Cheng Ling wrapped the snake around a branch to drain the blood and headed toward the bushes. After poking around, she found what she was looking for, a nest of quail eggs. 8 or 9 little eggs lying there. Cheng Ling pulled out the bag that held dried fruit, carefully placed the eggs inside, patting them with dry grass to keep them from breaking. She wasn't satisfied yet. This bush was too good. There had to be more than one quail family living here. Sure enough, she found 2 more nests, for a total of 25 eggs. Satisfied, she put the bag in her backpack and left it under the tree. The chat was blowing up. Amidst the 666 and amazing, someone asked, why did she put her bag down? What's she gonna do now? My guess, catch some quail. OMG. Roasted mushrooms, quail, snake, quail eggs. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan are so lucky. People keep saying she's riding the wave of popularity, but she is the wave. But how's she gonna catch them? Aren't they supposed to be looking for the cabin? Won't this waste time? Baidu Encyclopedia says, quail are small birds, 6 to 8 inches long. They like to move in flocks, hiding in bushes and grass. They cry when startled and hide when threatened, rarely flying. Cheng Ling crouched down in the bushes. Quail are skittish. They were probably hiding nearby when I was searching, but they're also dumb. If I'm quiet, they'll think the danger's gone and come back out, add a little tempting sound, and they'll be toast. Cheng Ling took off her jacket, turned it inside out, unzipped it, cinched the bottom tight, tied the sleeves together, making a kind of open bag. She held the tight cuffs and hid under the tree near the bushes. Cheng Ling pursed her lips. Coo, coo. What's she doing now? Bird calls. Holy crap. Ventriloquism. That's the sound we made when we caught quail back home. Why is her ventriloquism so good, but her singing sucks? Because ventriloquism doesn't need perfect pitch. Is that gonna work? Quail aren't that dumb. Video link, using bird sounds to lure quail works great. Check it out. Just then, a chubby little quail poked its head out of the woods and waddled toward Cheng Ling. Then another, and another. Cheng Ling waited until 5 quail, driven by curiosity, were strutting her way, then she made the call more urgent. Coo! Coo coo coo! And a miracle happened. The 5 quail ditched their slow strut and ran toward the tree like crazy. Cheng Ling grabbed the makeshift net, rushed out, and scooped them up, trapping all 5 in her jacket. A few others were slower to approach, and when they saw her, they freaked out and ran. Cheng Ling didn't chase them, 5 was enough. The quail were going nuts in her jacket. Cheng Ling tightened the opening, pulled out a rope, reached inside, grabbed a quail, snapped its neck, and tied its feet with the rope. Finally, she had 5 dead quail hanging from the rope. Cheng Ling unbuttoned the sleeves of her coat, turned it right side out, put it on, and tied the rope with the quail around her waist. I used to wonder why survival shows didn't hire professionals. Now I'm wondering if anyone is more professional than Cheng Ling. Can she even wear that jacket now? She had it inside out when she put the quail in. 5 big, juicy, plump quail. I had to Google how to roast quail. I'm on my way to a barbecue place that serves quail. Satisfied, Cheng Ling stood up, slung on her backpack, grabbed the snake, and headed back. On the way, she bent down to pick up some yellow mushrooms, grabbed some wild kiwis and hawthorns from the trees, filling 2 pockets. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan were waiting anxiously. It's so inconvenient without a phone. Bai Muchuan sighed, I don't know how people lived without phones back in the day. I hope Cheng Ling's okay. Jiang Qilan frowned. She's tough. I'm not too worried. Besides, the crew isn't showing themselves, but they're watching. They wouldn't let us get into real trouble, right? I guess. Jiang Qilan was still worried. He pushed himself up and said, maybe I should go look for her. Not just then, they saw Cheng Ling appear from the trees. Bai Muchuan waved excitedly, big sis. You're back. Cheng Ling waved back. Bai Muchuan's expression froze. He saw Cheng Ling holding something long and green. Was that a snake? Chapter 45. The barbecue party is about to begin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Jiang Qilan saw Cheng Ling, he breathed a sigh of relief and hurried towards her. Cheng Ling, you're back. How'd it go? He asked, concerned. We scored big. Let's get this show on the road. We can be eating in less than half an hour, Cheng Ling said cheerfully. She'd walked slowly on the way back, worried about the quail eggs in her backpack getting smashed against the seasoning jars. She held out her hand to Jiang Qilan. Here, hold this a sec. I want to check the eggs. Caught off guard, Jiang Qilan reached out and took what she offered. Huh. That's weird. Dry, soft, and cold. Instinctively, Jiang Qilan looked down at his hand. A headless snake, a headless snake. Snake. Ah! Jiang Qilan screamed, dropping the snake and frantically rubbing his hands, covered in goosebumps. He looked like a cactus with its needles sticking straight out. Cheng Ling nearly dropped her backpack from the sheer volume of his shriek. Once Jiang Qilan had calmed down a little, Cheng Ling asked, does your agent have insurance on your voice? You keep screaming like that, you'll blow out your vocal cords. Bai Muchuan, seeing it was a snake, stayed put on the big rock. Jiang Qilan shivered. How? How could there be snakes? You think it's news that there are snakes? Cheng Ling put her backpack down, carefully checking her bag for broken eggs. Relieved when she found nothing leaking, she looked up at him. Bro, didn't you say you were all about the outdoors? You never run into snakes. I've seen snakes before. But I've never caught one. Jiang Qilan was losing it. He could still feel the cold, rough texture of the dead snake on his palm. Just thinking about what he'd held made him want to chop off his hands. Oh. So you don't eat snakes, either? Cheng Ling asked. Jiang Qilan shook his head vehemently. Cheng Ling looked at Bai Muchuan, who was still looking terrified on the rock. What about you, Muchuan? You eat snake? Bai Muchuan shook his head, equally frantic. TSK, you guys have no taste. Roasted snake is awesome, Cheng Ling said, disappointed. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan weren't disappointed at all, they just thought Cheng Ling was nuts. Okay, you guys can have roasted quail and mushrooms. Cheng Ling muttered. Didn't you say you didn't have any dietary restrictions? The point is, we didn't think you'd catch that. Next time, maybe I should specify that we don't eat human flesh. Jiang Qilan said, rubbing his arms, trying to get rid of the goosebumps that wouldn't go away. Alright, I get it. You two grab your stainless steel bowls. I found some quail eggs, mushrooms, and some wild berries. Take the bowls to the stream and wash them. I'll deal with the snakes and quail. Quail. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan asked simultaneously. The quails tied to Cheng Ling's waist were hard to miss, but right now, they were less fascinating than the snake in Cheng Ling's hands. After asking, they finally noticed the 5 plump quails hanging upside down on Cheng Ling's waist. Cheng Ling handed the wild berries from her pocket, the mushrooms from her school bag, and the bag of quail eggs to the 2 of them. The 3 then headed towards the stream. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan washed the berries in the upper part of the stream, while Cheng Ling used a small knife to prepare the snakes and quail in the lower part. Cheng Ling peeled the snakeskin off, starting from the head, pulling the whole skin off and washing it in the water. Snakeskin was valuable and should be preserved. She plucked and washed the quail, and then the drone parts came in handy. She took apart the drone's bottom bracket, using 6 pieces, 8 propellers, and dozens of large and small metal rods as skewers. You two, get the tent out, but don't set it up. Use it as a tablecloth, and dump the clean stuff on it. Fill the stainless steel bowls with water and set them aside. I'll use them later. Jiang, you and Muchuan go find some dry firewood. I'll marinate the food, and we'll eat ASAP. Cheng Ling efficiently assigned tasks. After bossing them around, she pulled out her bottles and jars of seasoning, and then some wild shallots that she'd picked yesterday from the outside pocket of her bag. She minced the shallots and put them in her stainless steel bowl, then poured in 5 spice powder, salt, cooking wine, white sesame seeds, sesame oil, white vinegar, minced garlic, and chili powder. She mixed everything together with her hands, evenly coating the inside and outside of the quail and the outside of the snake. Rubbing it in thoroughly would ensure the seasoning was absorbed as quickly as possible. Once the 5 quail and the snake were seasoned, Cheng Ling stood up and found 2 forearm-length stones in the woods. By this time, Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan had brought back the first load of firewood. Bai Muchuan was panting slightly, with beads of sweat on his forehead. He dropped the firewood and flopped down on a big rock, watching Cheng Ling dig a hole with the metal shell she'd removed from the drone. Big sister, whatcha doing digging a hole? Bai Muchuan asked. Making a simple outdoor barbecue pit. When the firewood's in the hole, it won't get blown around by the wind, and the ashes won't get all over the food, Cheng Ling said, glancing at the pile of firewood. I think this won't be enough. You two have to find some more. Jiang Qilan nudged Bai Muchuan, who was sprawled on the rock. You keep saying you're hungry, right? Quit loafing and find more firewood. Ugh, this is hard work. Roughing it is too rough. Bai Muchuan rubbed his stomach. I'm starving. Or is it my imagination? I don't usually get hungry this easily. Outdoor stuff burns a lot of energy. You're trekking in the forest, taking in a lot of sensory input, all of which will burn your mental energy, so it's normal to get hungry quicker, Jiang Qilan explained, but he kept watching Cheng Ling. Cheng Ling dug a pit, filled it with firewood, and placed the 2 long stones on one side, setting the 2 water-filled basins on top of the stones, making sure they were stable. Then, she bent down to light the firewood. Cheng Ling was too quick. Jiang Qilan hovered around, wanting to help, but couldn't find an opening. Bai Muchuan followed Jiang Qilan to look for more firewood. After the fire was going, Cheng Ling put the cleaned quail eggs in one of the stainless steel bowls. The water in the other was for drinking later. After boiling the eggs a few times, she used a cloth to move the hot water aside. She squeezed the excess water out of the mushrooms, then brushed them with sesame oil, followed by a layer of barbecue sauce. Then, she skewered them. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan had gathered all the firewood they could find nearby, and then ventured further away to bring back more. Cheng Ling glanced at the pile and said, "Okay, that's plenty. You two go wash your hands and eat some wild berries. The barbecue is about to begin." That the two of them sighed in relief, collapsed onto the big rock, and watched Cheng Ling's cooking performance while their stomachs growled. Chapter 46 The First Time I Misjudged Someone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The quail eggs simmered in the iron pot for about 8 minutes. Cheng Ling pulled the pot off the heat. She grabbed a drone wing and used it to crack the shells of the quail eggs all over. Then, she mixed in scallions, salt, 5 spice powder, and cooking wine to marinate them. "Sis, you're making 5 spice quail eggs?" Bai Muchuan, munching on some round dates, watched curiously. "Seems like a lot of work. Can't we just eat them plain?" "We could," Cheng Ling explained, "but we're burning a lot of energy out here. A little extra flavor helps. And I happen to have the spices, so no biggie." Jiang Qilan examined the green fruit in his hand, about the size of a date. "You call these round dates?" he asked. "Do I need to peel them or spit out a pit?" "Nope, round dates are also called wild kiwis. They're good for boosting your energy and beating the heat. They're tasty, but don't eat too many, or you'll get the runs. Keep it under 10, Cheng Ling advised. Hold on, let me stoke the fire a bit. This will cook faster." She tossed some more wood on the fire and then resumed roasting the 5 quails and the snake on skewers. Jiang Qilan and Bai Muchuan watched with anticipation. Flames licked at the pink meat, and soon, a subtle aroma began to fill the air. Cheng Ling sprinkled on a little seasoning now and then, carefully turning each skewer to ensure even cooking. She was slender, with long arms and legs and a narrow waist. Even in baggy outdoor gear, she didn't look bulky. Her long black hair was pulled back into a high ponytail for convenience, revealing a smooth, round forehead. A few strands of hair framed her clean, slender neck. Despite being out in the wilderness for so long without makeup, she still looked fresh and energetic. She had the look of a high school student, clean and innocent. This youthful girl, sitting in the heart of the jungle, skillfully grilling food over an open fire, created a striking contrast. Her movements were efficient and graceful, almost like a master artist at work. With a flick of her wrist, the skin of the plump quail gradually tightened and turned golden brown, dripping fat into the flames, intensifying the delicious smell. "Sis, that smells amazing!" Bai Muchuan exclaimed, swallowing hard. He'd already eaten a bunch of hawthorns and round dates, leaving his mouth and stomach full of sourness. The hot, savory scent of the roasted quail was almost too much to bear. Jiang Qilan wasn't faring much better. He came from a prominent political family and had enjoyed a privileged upbringing. He'd had nutritionists and chefs catering to his needs since he was a child. His family was strict, so he never even ate school lunches, opting instead to have someone bring food to him or take him home. Apart from unavoidable social events and banquets, he rarely ate out. Barbecue was definitely out of the question. As an adult, he wasn't bound by his family's rules, but public dining was difficult. Being famous, he risked attracting unwanted attention and causing a commotion. He'd occasionally had fancy small barbecue skewers at 5-star restaurants. Picture spotless windows, luxurious marble tables, snow-white napkins, and delicate skewers neatly arranged on silver platters. Elegant, but oh so boring. Now, under a makeshift shelter, surrounded by chirping insects and billowing smoke, with the tantalizing sizzle of roasting quail, the sanitary conditions, Jiang Qilan was sure his father and brother would faint on the spot. But at this moment, Jiang Qilan tasted a hint of the real world he'd never experienced before. "Cheng Ling, is roasted quail good?" Jiang Qilan asked. "Does it have a weird taste?" "You've never had roasted quail?" "Oh, don't worry, there's no strange taste at all, and it's even better than regular poultry." Cheng Ling flipped the skewers and poked the meat with a stick to check for doneness. She continued, "Quail is low in fat and high in protein. It's fresh, flavorful, and not greasy. The bones are tiny. I'm going to roast them until they're a little crispy, so you can chew on them and eat them with the meat." "Sounds delicious." After Cheng Ling's description, Bai Muchuan swallowed again. He asked curiously, "Sis, how are you so good at grilling? You don't seem like someone who'd be doing this stuff." "It's just a hobby," Cheng Ling said. "I picked up a few tricks. It's nothing special." Jiang Qilan immediately objected, "Don't be so modest. That roasted rabbit you made yesterday was incredible. Especially considering the conditions. This is the first time I've been wrong about someone." "Oh, so you looked down on me before we started the show?" Cheng Ling asked, raising an eyebrow. Jiang Qilan coughed, "Well, you didn't exactly have the best reputation." "Actor Jiang, where do you get the nerve to tell the truth to Big Sister?" "Cheng Ling, please go easy on him. Our Jiang Qilan has been too sheltered. He's never had to think before he speaks. You're a good person. He dares to offend the big boss. Wow. Why are you so dense?" Cheng Ling wasn't offended. She glanced at Jiang Qilan, partly explaining, partly persuading. "To be honest, young people these days are too quick to judge. Some things aren't necessarily true. What I was like before. That's what the media decided. Let me give you an example. Muchuan, you memorized that speech about protecting the environment on the bus by heart, right?" Muchuan laughed. "Yeah, my manager made me memorize it over and over, but I still messed up some words." "Exactly. Didn't the director tell us that when we're on the show, we should be ourselves and not worry about creating a fake persona? Because out in the wilderness, it's hard to hide who you really are. Besides, I think this is good for you. Don't always act like you're so untouchable. Besides, could you keep that up forever? Even if you could, wouldn't you get tired?" Muchuan and his manager, Decay, who was watching from behind the screen, were both stunned. Chapter 47 at #039, Guess like a fucking vacation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This was shaping up to be the biggest career crisis Muchuan had ever faced. He'd gotten famous fast, thanks to his sister. He played the gentle, charming guy, which audiences ate up, but audiences get bored, and he was starting to confuse his roles. He was getting bored too. His acting was stagnating, going nowhere. His career path was shrinking. Was he really going to be playing the young heartthrob in his 30s or 40s, long after his youth had faded? Jiang Qilan was in a similar boat, looking equally dumbfounded. While his acting range was slightly broader than Muchuan's, it was still limited. He was always cast as the handsome young executive, the CEO, the emperor. Lost in thought, they both heard Cheng Ling call out, "All right, the roasted quail's ready. Since you two are skipping the snake, I'll just have it all to myself. You get 2 quails each. Careful, they're hot." Cheng Ling handed them each 2 skewers. Jiang Qilan took his. Wow, these were heavy. They didn't look much bigger than a cell phone, but they were packed with meat. Cheng Ling tossed the marinated mushrooms onto the fire and set a pot of spiced quail eggs to simmer. She threw on a few more pieces of firewood, blew on the snake meat, and started eating. The snake cooled down faster than the quail. Cheng Ling twisted the meat into an S shape. It was chewy and slightly spicy, with a unique taste. Chewier than duck neck, but without all the tendons and gristle. Delicious. Muchuan had burned his lips on the quail, so he could only watch Cheng Ling eat. "Sis, is it good?" "Of course, it's good," Cheng Ling said, spitting out a bone. "Pull off the legs, they'll cool down faster." Muchuan and Jiang Qilan immediately did as she said. The roasted quail legs were a dark, shiny red. Cheng Ling sprinkled a thin layer of chili powder and crushed sesame seeds on them, making their mouths water. Muchuan hadn't had meat in 2 days, and he was even more eager than Jiang Qilan. He took a big bite. It was a little hot at first, but once he adjusted, the flavor exploded in his mouth. The meat was juicy, with the rich taste of poultry and the smoky aroma of wood-fired barbecue. The spices and the barbecue combined perfectly, and it was so good he could have died happy. Jiang Qilan tore off the 2 legs from one of his quails and offered them to Cheng Ling. "Here, you're working hard, eat up." Cheng Ling didn't take them. Her expression suddenly turned serious. She cocked her head, listening intently. "What's wrong?" Jiang Qilan asked. Someone's coming, Cheng Ling whispered. Muchuan jumped to his feet and looked around. Who is it? Is the production team finally delivering some help? I didn't hear anything. Cheng Ling remained silent, pursing her lips, quietly tightening her grip on the iron bar. She crouched low, ready for anything. A long moment passed, then, from far away, a faint sound reached them. Swish, the bushes rustled, a man stumbled out from the trees. It was the parkour guy, Lu Zhan. Cheng Ling relaxed her grip on the bar and stared at Lu Zhan. Wow, he was a far cry from the cocky guy who'd arrived on the show. His hair was a mess, his face was gaunt and exhausted, he was carrying a backpack and wielding a stick, looking like a homeless wanderer. You're Lu Zhan. Jiang Qilan was surprised. What happened to you? Lu Zhan's legs gave out, and he collapsed onto the ground. Seeing Jiang Qilan and the others, he wanted to burst into tears. He'd been through hell since yesterday. After being drugged and dumped out of the van, all the guests had their hands tied. Usually, they'd get untied after a few minutes, but Lu Zhan was different. His arms were short, and his torso was long. He couldn't reach his hands in front of him no matter what he tried. It took him almost an hour to free himself. The stuff in the backpack was alright, a fruit knife, a camping light, first aid kit, and a waterproof camouflage raincoat, but these things were useless. He tried to find the other guests, but after wandering around for 4 or 5 hours, he realized he'd gone in a big circle and ended up right back where he'd started. He was thirsty, tired, and hungry. The forest was super dense, and the mosquitoes were relentless. Normally, he could handle a few bugs, no problem, but as soon as it got dark, they swarmed him, and every inch of his body was red and swollen with bites. He couldn't help but scratch, and the more he scratched, the itchier he got. Soon, his skin was covered in red welts, and he had an even bigger problem. Sweat dripped into the scratches, and it stung like hell. As dusk settled and the sky darkened, he gave up on finding his teammates and huddled under a big tree, planning to spend the night. The wilderness was beautiful, with fireflies twinkling everywhere, but Lu Zhan was in no mood to appreciate it. He couldn't lose his cool, not with the cameras hidden somewhere in the woods. If he freaked out and lost it, the whole world would laugh at him, so, he tried to sleep. As soon as Lu Zhan switched off the camping light and closed his eyes, he heard a chorus of wolf howls in the distance. A woo, that he shot awake. The wolves stopped howling then, but every firefly in the forest looked like the eye of a wolf. Lu Zhan grabbed the fruit knife, leaned against the tree, and scanned the dark forest. Later, an unmanned drone appeared, dropped a bag of supplies, and flew off. Lu Zhan ripped open the bag, hoping for food, but found only 3 useless items: a box of water purification tablets, a stainless steel bowl, a pack of sanitary napkins, and a task card. As if he'd been saved, Lu Zhan grabbed the camping light and squinted at the card. Welcome to the wild boar forest, blah blah, persuade the owner to give you riches and maps. Lu Zhan couldn't believe it. He flipped the card over. Blank, that was it. Just that vague crap. Persuade the owner. Kiss my ass. Lu Zhan cursed under his breath, on the verge of tears. He was pretty sure he'd heard wolves, and the task card clearly implied there were wolves. How could he sleep? How could he even dare to sleep? So, he forced himself to stay awake all night. The first half was okay, but in the second half, the dew settled, and he was freezing. He threw on the raincoat and shivered, cold, sleepy, hungry, and covered in itchy bites. Lu Zhan had never suffered so much in his life, but he kept telling himself, at least I'm not having as bad of a time as the other 6 guests. At least Muchuan and Cheng Ling are in worse shape than me. Especially Cheng Ling. People are scared of dogs, and she's a delicate little thing. She's probably crying somewhere right now. Lu Zhan's head lolled to the side, and he slumped against the tree. After a while, he slid down the trunk like a melting popsicle, then jerked awake and sat up straight. Slid again, sat again. He spent the whole night like that. The misery was beyond words. And now. Lu Zhan stared at the 3 people in front of him, his eyes bloodshot. They were lounging by the fire, eating barbecue, snacking on quail eggs, munching on wild fruit, and chatting. It was like a freakin' vacation. Chapter 48 I am the only funny little baby in this team. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Zhan was officially at his breaking point. He was comparing himself to everyone else, and it was brutal. Why was he always the one drawing the short straw? And Cheng Ling and Muchuan, who he'd imagined were doing even worse than him, were all smiles, energetic, and happily chatting around the fire. What the hell? Jiang Qilan, noticing Lu Zhan's expression, asked, Lu Zhan, you alright? Alright? He was screwed. This was a disaster. Lu Zhan launched into a full-blown complaint about every hardship he'd faced since waking up from anesthesia yesterday. He just went on and on. It was a torrent of whining. Why is Lu Zhan acting like this? I just checked into Lu Zhan's live stream on my phone. Apparently, he's had it rough. Seriously? It's a survival show. Did he think it would be a walk in the park? I haven't been watching the other contestants. I've been glued to Cheng Ling's live stream since day one. Can someone give me the rundown on the others? Okay, so watching Cheng Ling's live stream is like watching This Old House, while watching the others is like watching Naked and Afraid. Are the other contestants really having that bad of a time? Yeah. Mosquito bites galore, barely any food, no sleep, blisters everywhere, tripping into holes, falling into gross, stinky pits, always dirty, wet, hungry, and cold, basically crying in front of the campfire. Jiang Qilan and Muchuan should be thanking Cheng Ling. Without her, would they be living the good life? Hold up, Jiang Qilan and Muchuan have pulled their weight too. Don't act like Cheng Ling is the only one doing anything, okay? Go back and watch. Cheng Ling wanted to fly solo from the start. Jiang Qilan and Muchuan were the ones who insisted on tagging along, remember? Jiang Qilan and Muchuan fans, I'm just saying, if your idols knew you were saying this online, they'd probably beg you to leave the fanbase. Cheng Ling single-handedly turned a tough survival show into a relaxing vacation. Look at the bruises on my body. And all these scratches from thorns. Lu Zhan pulled up his pants legs to show them off. Muchuan clutched his chest, relieved. Holy crap. If he hadn't latched onto Cheng Ling, his legs would look just like that. Lu Zhan was having a terrible time. Muchuan felt sympathy for the hungry and miserable Lu Zhan. Maybe it was his imagination, but the quail he was holding seemed even more delicious now. Muchuan took a big bite. Lu Zhan stared at Muchuan devouring the roasted quail and swallowed hard. He wanted some so bad. Lu Zhan finished swallowing and turned to Jiang Qilan with pleading eyes. He was convinced that Muchuan's carefree attitude was all thanks to the big boss, Jiang Qilan. Jiang Qilan had to be the leader of the group. Lu Zhan looked at him with tears welling up, and Jiang Qilan immediately understood what he was thinking. He did feel bad for what Lu Zhan was going through, but they'd all been chosen for the show, gotten paid a ton of money by the producers, and knew going in that this wasn't a vacation. If he hadn't even mentally prepared for that, who could he blame? Besides, he, Jiang Qilan, wasn't in a position to give Lu Zhan anything, because he knew that the reason he was sitting there comfortably was all thanks to Cheng Ling. Cheng Ling was their leader. The heart and soul. She was the only one who could decide what to do with their supplies. If Cheng Ling didn't say anything, what right did he or Muchuan have to give away their resources? The air hung heavy for a moment. Lu Zhan's face stiffened. He looked deeply uncomfortable. Nobody was going to help him. He'd already laid it all out there. Did he have to spell it out? This was a live broadcast. Weren't they afraid of looking like heartless jerks? Lu Zhan, Cheng Ling said, spitting out a bone, we get it. You've had a rough time. Anything else you want to say? This guy wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Did he have to be told to just ask for what he wanted? Was he expecting someone to just hand it to him? Cheng Ling thought with exasperation. She was sitting on a rock, one leg propped up against a tree. One hand held the iron skewer they were using to roast snakes. Her pose was like a mob boss, and more importantly, Jiang Qilan and Muchuan sat on either side of her like bodyguards. A flicker of confusion crossed Lu Zhan's tired, sleepy, and grimy mind. Jiang Qilan had to be the one in charge. He's sitting in the center. So, shouldn't he be calling the shots? Why did it seem like Cheng Ling was running things? No way, that was impossible, and wasn't Cheng Ling supposed to be out of the picture? Why did it seem like she was calling the shots? Lu Zhan was losing it. Cheng Ling tore off a piece of snake meat, popped it in her mouth, chewed it thoughtfully, and raised her eyes to look at Lu Zhan. Her eyes and actions made it clear she was impatiently waiting for an answer. Lu Zhan snapped back to reality and stammered, I'm hungry. Cheng Ling glanced at Jiang Qilan. Jiang Qilan was still holding the roasted quail leg he'd been saving for Cheng Ling. Ugh, did she really want him to give this amazing leg to Lu Zhan? He didn't want to. He didn't want to give that delicious roasted quail leg to anyone but her. Cheng Ling stared at Jiang Qilan and raised her chin, signaling, go on, give him the quail leg. Ugh, Jiang Qilan reluctantly handed the roasted quail leg to Lu Zhan. Here, this is for you. Lu Zhan's eyes lit up. His miserable appearance, combined with looking like he hadn't eaten in days, made him look like a refugee. Cheng Ling grabbed a handful of quail eggs from the cooling container and shoved them into Lu Zhan's empty hands. Eat up. Lu Zhan started gnawing on the quail leg without even saying thank you. Aren't you going to thank Jiang? Cheng Ling prompted him. Lu Zhan paused, put down the roasted quail leg, and bowed to Jiang Qilan. Thank you, Jiang. He hesitated, then turned and bowed to Cheng Ling and Bai Muchuan. Thank you, Cheng, thank you, Bai. Alright, Cheng Ling patted his shoulder, eat. You've had a tough time getting here on your own. You've earned it. A wave of emotion rushed to his nose, and the tears he'd been holding back finally burst out. Wow, it's been so hard, Lu Zhan sobbed, wiping away tears with the quail leg. Bai Muchuan, who was enjoying the barbecue, suddenly perked up. This guy was putting on a pity act. What if the boss took pity on him and let him join the team? Wasn't he and Jiang Qilan the ones who played the pity card in order to be accepted? No way. There could only be one goofball on this team. Oh, right, didn't the show say teams could only have 3 people? So, he was safe. Wait, Lu Zhan was good at parkour, so he was agile, and his supplies seemed pretty decent. He was more useful than him. If the boss kicked him off the team, he was screwed. He couldn't just sit around and wait to get voted off the island. Chapter 49. Why do you want to hurt me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Feeling a major crisis brewing, Bai Muchuan reluctantly set down his half-eaten roasted quail, grease practically dripping from his mouth. Hey, no need to be so formal. Our captain Cheng Ling is super generous, right, Jiang? He really hammered home the words our captain Cheng Ling. Asterisk translation, we're a team. Don't get any bright ideas, star. Lu Zhan looked up at Cheng Ling, bewildered, tears still in his eyes, then at Jiang Qilan. Huh? Captain Cheng Ling? She's the captain. No way. But Jiang Qilan nodded. Lu Zhan was completely lost. Cheng Ling? The captain? Why? Just because she's a woman. So these guys just let her be in charge. He blurted out, wait, Cheng Ling's the captain. Why? Is this some kind of charity case? I bet teacher Cheng's been a real drag, ha ha ha. He practically had. I looked down on Cheng Ling branded on his forehead, watching the stream. Lu Zhan's agent facepalmed. This show was blowing up online. Catching Cheng Ling's coattails was a surefire ticket to fame and fortune, but no. What is wrong with you, Lu Zhan? You just had to insult Cheng Ling right off the bat. Before he went on the show, he was told over and over, don't make enemies. Don't look down on anyone. Keep your opinions to yourself. Today's nobody is tomorrow's star. A little bit of hardship and you forget everything. Even if Cheng Ling is a dead weight, trashing women in front of millions of viewers. You're asking to get cancelled. Cheng Ling's smile and sympathy vanished. If she could, she'd snatch back every quail egg and leg she'd given him. Maybe I have been slowing Jiang and Muchuan down, Cheng Ling said coolly, but they haven't complained, so maybe you shouldn't get so worked up, alright? As for you, things are only going to get harder. You should just eat up, get your strength back, and move on. Asterisk oh snap, you just pissed off the queen bee, asterisk by Muchuan thought. He immediately jumped in. Yeah, our captain's right. The tough times are ahead. Get done eating, find another group to team up with. You don't want to be stuck out here after dark. Trying to ditch him already? Lu Zhan's eyes darted between Bai Muchuan and Cheng Ling, and suddenly he thought he understood. Before the show, he'd heard rumors about Cheng Ling and Bai Muchuan having some fling. During the promotional video shoot, he'd been hoping to see them get awkward or flustered on camera, but they played it cool. So they were going to be more discreet with the cameras rolling? Bai Muchuan was practically simping for Cheng Ling. Didn't he know how that looked? Jiang Qilan must be fuming. Wiping his tears, Lu Zhan, with a newfound understanding, turned to Jiang Qilan and said, "Wow, you two are really close. But hey, I don't need to find another group, right? Since Teacher Cheng and Teacher Bai are so tight, how about this, you ditch this team and come with me. They can be all lovey-dovey together. Everybody wins, right?" Jiang Qian's face darkened. His voice was low. "What did I ever do to you? I gave you my roasted quail leg. The thanks I get is you trying to stab me in the back. This guy's toast. Doesn't he get that Cheng Ling's the real boss of this trio? He just managed to offend all three of them. LOL. Does Lu Zhan think he's being clever? Seriously, they helped you, and you try to steal one of them? You're something else." Lu Zhan's panicking. Lu Zhan, quail leg in one hand, a handful of quail eggs in the other, stared at Jiang Qilan, dumbfounded. He knew the words Jiang Qilan was saying, but the meaning was lost on him. He'd just asked Jiang Qilan to dump Cheng Ling and Bai Muchuan for him. How was that hurting him? "Jiang, did I say something wrong? I'm just saying, leave them and come with me. Wouldn't that be better?" Lu Zhan repeated. Jiang Qilan was terrified Cheng Ling would really kick him out. He rarely showed his emotions, but he said coldly, "I'm not leaving this team. And I sure as hell am not teaming up with you. Take your stuff and go." Cheng Ling didn't bother to speak. She just quietly ate, conserving her energy. This guy is destined for a short career in entertainment. Lu Zhan was still bewildered. Did he not help Jiang Qilan get away from Cheng Ling and Bai Muchuan? Just a suggestion. If you don't want to, fine. No big deal. Lu Zhan said, sounding wronged. Sorry to bother you guys while you're eating. Ignore me. He took his food, sat under a big tree, and ate in silence. He was so hungry he barely tasted the first bite. The second bite, though, he realized how delicious the quail leg actually was. And then it hit him. Cheng Ling was the one grilling. That was it. Cheng Ling could cook. That's why they teamed up with her. Teacher Cheng, this is amazing. You grilled this? Lu Zhan held up the leg. Cheng Ling's expression softened slightly. Finally, he was saying something reasonable. She nodded. Lu Zhan took another bite. Hey, Teacher Cheng's not going to have any trouble finding a good husband. I'm super picky about food. My mom always said I need to find a girlfriend who can cook, so she can take care of me. EW. Is Lu Zhan a mama's boy? Did he seriously think they teamed up with her because she can cook? As a Lu Zhan fan, I gotta say, this is making me cringe. Right? So many parents tell their daughters to learn to cook and clean so their husbands won't complain later. So, a girlfriend is just a caregiver. Ugh. I thought Lu Zhan was cool. I just lost all respect. The other party has withdrawn a roasted quail leg. Chapter 50. I won't look for someone in the circle as my girlfriend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Jiang Qilan said, a little surprised, wait, are you a picky eater? Have you ever considered learning to cook yourself? That it was both a criticism and a suggestion. Lu Zhan, oblivious, plowed ahead, why should I? Isn't cooking supposed to be a woman's thing? Some are just better at it than others. He chewed thoughtfully, then added, Teacher Cheng's cooking is great, though. Too bad I'd never date anyone in this industry. Asterisk ha, star. Asterisk what an idiot, star. By Muchuan munched on his barbecue, unconcerned, asterisk there's no way big sister will ever let this guy on the team. That mouth of his is gonna get him killed, star. Asterisk Jiang is right. Knowing when to shut up is a skill. You can really dig yourself a hole if you don't, star. The others ignored Lu Zhan completely. Cheng Ling finished her roasted snake and quail, and shared the mushrooms with Jiang Qiyun and Bai Muchuan. Roasted mushrooms were Bai Muchuan's favorite. If Lu Zhan wasn't hanging around, he would have been showering Cheng Ling with praise. Lu Zhan finished his meager portion and watched Cheng Ling and the others eat the mushroom skewers, practically drooling. He was hoping they'd take pity on him and share. He was being obvious enough, right? Cheng Ling and the others saw it. All right, they just didn't care. He wasn't going to starve or anything. A little discomfort might teach him a lesson. Cheng Ling finished eating first. With everything roasted, she needed to put out the fire. I'm done too, Cheng Ling. I'll help you clean up, Jiang Qilan said, quickly finishing his food and helping Cheng Ling extinguish the flames. Bai Muchuan was also done. The three of them drank the cooled water, wiped everything down, packed it up, and stowed it back in their backpacks. Lu Zhan got to his feet too. Okay, so I won't join your team, but can I follow you guys? Is that cool? Lu Zhan asked. Sure, but you might miss your chance to team up with someone else, Jiang Qilan pointed out. He liked Lu Zhan even less now. While Cheng Ling, Bai Muchuan, and he were cleaning up, Lu Zhan just sat there, not even offering to lend a hand. That's fine. If I'm bothering you, just tell me to leave, Lu Zhan said with a smile. Wow, Lu Zhan is so manipulative. He didn't say he would leave you. But the show is supposed to be a competition. If you just follow them, he's helping you clear the path, and that's not fair. Grab your walking sticks. We've got a long trek ahead of us. Let's move out, Cheng Ling said, hoisting her backpack. Bai Muchuan nodded enthusiastically, patting his stomach. Don't worry, big sister, I'm stuffed. I've got energy to burn. Cheng Ling nodded. Bai Muchuan was good in that respect. He had stamina. He hadn't complained once during the 2-hour hike earlier. The three set off again. Bai Muchuan, usually so chatty, knew he needed to conserve his energy, so he kept quiet. Plus, with Lu Zhan tagging along, they all felt a little awkward talking freely, so they walked on in silence. But after only half an hour, Lu Zhan was already starting to crack. His shoes had rubbed several blisters on his feet, and every step was painful. He'd also barely slept the night before, and his stamina was gone. He'd barely been able to keep up with the others' pace before, but now it was almost impossible, so he started complaining. Ugh, I'm so tired. Is this production crew trying to kill us? What's the point of being outdoors? There are bugs everywhere. Hey, what's your blood type? Why aren't the mosquitoes biting you? Lu Zhan slapped his neck with a loud smack. There was another bite on his neck. I guess my blood is too sweet. It's like a mosquito magnet. You guys are lucky, haha. Do your feet hurt? Mine are killing me. Walking in the forest is so tiring. One foot goes up, the other goes down. Even something unpleasant and difficult feels worse when you've got someone next to you oozing negativity. The others ignored him and kept walking. Cheng Ling would occasionally stop to check the trees and the sun to make sure they were headed in the right direction. Finally, Lu Zhan couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't walk another step. Spotting a stump, he collapsed onto it. Cheng Ling and the others didn't wait for him, leaving Lu Zhan in the dust. Cheng Ling glanced back. Lu Zhan had sat down and was resting, completely spent. Cheng Ling stopped and looked back again. Are we waiting for him? Bai Muchuan asked, also looking back. No need, Cheng Ling said, frowning slightly, but she didn't move forward. Instead, she stood there, staring into the dense forest. Jiang Qilan tried to reassure her. Don't worry, the film crew's got to be nearby. He'll be fine. Cheng Ling frowned. She wasn't looking at Lu Zhan. She had the feeling that someone was secretly watching them from the shadows. Was it the film crew? But it was a feeling that sent a shiver down Cheng Ling's spine. Cheng Ling gripped the fabric of her pocket. inside was a used bullet casing, 9mm parabellum ammunition, and parabellum ammunition was typically used in Vis WZ.35 Radom pistols. The pistol has a simple structure, reliable action and stable performance. Before World War II, about 46,000 were produced. It is an antique gun and is rarely seen on the market, especially in a country like China that has a comprehensive gun ban. Cheng Ling clenched her fist. She happened to know someone who had a particular fondness for the Vis WZ.35 Radom pistol and had spent a fortune collecting 5 of them from around the world. That person was Alexei, her missing teammate, before he disappeared. Alexei had been on a mission near the Russian-Chinese border. Cheng Ling had used every resource she had to try and find him, but to no avail, and now, by chance, she had actually found several casings from a Vis WZ.35 Radom pistol near the stream yesterday. It was too much of a coincidence. That was why she'd hijacked the drone and planted a GPS locator by the stream, hoping to investigate after the show. She couldn't let anyone know what she was doing, she couldn't explain it. Cheng Ling remained silent. Jiang Qilan hesitated before leaning in close and whispering, "Cheng Ling, did you find something? When Lu Zhan showed up, you seemed kind of on edge." He'd noticed. Cheng Ling glanced at Jiang Qilan, surprised, but didn't answer directly. "It's nothing, just my nerves acting up in the woods." "Don't worry about it," Cheng Ling said, looking away. "Let's get moving."